Hi there, welcome back. Today I've got for you an interesting concept that I didn't know I could do before, which is painting fabric chairs. You can see here I've got a barrel chair. I wanted one of those fun, funky, swiveling barrel sort of boucle inspired chairs, but in leather, so not really boucle at all. You can see there's some tears in the fabric. Basically what you do is you can see what I'm doing here. Get a cup of water, get some chalk paint, or really regular paint. I've tested it with chalk paint, latex paint. I don't know about oil-based paint. I don't think that would work as well. But chalk paint or oil-based paint, they're completely different. So chalk-based, latex paint, basically anything you'd use on furniture or walls. Get you a cup of water and some of that paint. Dip your brush in the water, then dip your brush in the paint and start painting your fabric. It seems counterintuitive, I know, trust me, I'm aware of how strange it feels to paint fabric, but that's exactly what you need to do. So as you can see here, I'm going for not as high coverage as you would think. You have to do multiple layers. So on my first layer, I'm just sort of soaking the fabric. And what you're doing is essentially dyeing the fabric at first. You want the paint to be runny enough so that it soaks through the fabric and actually dyes those fibers. And then on subsequent layers, you can kind of build it up a little bit. But you can see here, I'm spreading it pretty thin. It doesn't look like it, but I'm spreading it pretty thin so that we can kind of soak into that fabric. And as it sits and begins to dry and settle into the fabric, the fabric underneath will come back and you'll see a little bit more of that pattern. But it's a really interesting technique to kind of refurb a chair that you've already got. So like I said, you can use any chalk paint, any furniture paint really that you want. You just need to be able to water it down and get it into those fibers. I did 3 layers of paint. The first layer of paint was watered down to about 50-50, 50% water, 50% paint. The second one was probably about 75% paint, 50% water. And I was going for covering up the texture of this fabric. And you can see a lot of color. Every single color kind of switches direction in thread, so it's a lot of texture. So I was trying to cover up as much of that as possible as well. So you can see, even with just a first coat, evening out the color evens out the texture a lot. So my last layer on this, and we're still on the first layer here, but on my last layer of this, it was completely just paint. I was using up the rest of the paint that I had, and it gave me this texture that's almost exactly like leather. Now, I will warn you that, shaky cam. I will warn you that depending on what kind of fabric you're painting, depends on what kind of finish you're going to get. You know, you can't expect a leather-like finish on a super textured fabric. So I tested this out. I tested it out on this type of fabric that's very smooth. I tested it out on fabric that's a little bit textured, so like a really thin, dense weave that's got less texture than this. And I actually tested that out on a pretty textured tweed. So tweed, you know, you can pull at tweed, you can feel tweed, it's not smooth at all. And the results vary a little bit. So with this one, with this kind of medium texture, you end up with a leather-like finish. What I found is that if you have a fabric that won't pill, if it's really smooth and no matter what you do to it, if it's a high durability fabric, painting over it like this one, it kind of looks like I call it a hotel chair, so it's really durable. You're going to get a smooth finish by the time you're done. For thinner fabrics or fabrics that are meant for accent chairs or chairs that not everyone is going to sit in every single day, so the fabric is prettier, but it's much less durable, so it wears a little bit easier, you're going to get some pilling, which is just little threads, little pieces of fabric kind of peeling up. It's normal. It's what happens to your sweaters when you put them in the wash. You're going to get a little of that when you paint medium weight fabrics. It's just what I found. I don't know if that applies to every fabric, but from what I've seen, I've done now this chair, a rocking chair, and a tweed office chair. When it comes to the tweed, that's an interesting one. With the tweed, you still have a lot of that texture. It no longer looks like tweed. It almost looks, I don't know, it looks like, I'm looking at it right now, it looks more like a cartoon, if anything. The paint will kind of lock in the most texture you can get out of the fabric, and so the fabric ends up feeling really rough. Not so rough that if you're this is going to sound weird, but as long as you're wearing clothes when you sit in the chair, it's not uncomfortable and it looks okay. But it is not the soft, smooth, buttery texture that you probably are looking for as far as leather. You're going to get more of a stiff, woolen sort of fabric, but a really stiff wool. Basically a wool that's been soaked in paint. But with this one, you can see as I'm painting it, the texture, even on the first coat, is pretty smooth because it's that really heavy weight, super durable, you can take a knife to it and it's barely going to do any damage to it type of fabric. Those are your ideal fabrics for painting. If you're painting something like a brocade or something with a sewn in detailing, that detailing is probably going to show through unless it's very, very, very tight to its underlaid fabric. It's probably going to show through. As long as you like that pattern though, it should be fine. But I would recommend this for the most part with the smoothest fabric that you can find. Don't try on your first attempt to do tweed, because you're not going to get the results that look like this. You're going to end up with results that are pretty prickly and stiff. It's just the nature of it. While we're just watching me paint, I'll give you some other tips. Don't worry about water soaking into the fabric. It's going to evaporate. It's going to come back out. I haven't had any problems with molding or any sort of discoloration. I've been using all of my chairs really frequently, and none of them have shown any signs of wear. Now, just like leather, I'm sure at some point the paint will crack, and that's, I would guess, just how it's going to be for anything, right? It's not just paint. Leather will crack eventually as well. I think the good thing about this is that when it cracks, you can just get more paint. I don't know for a fact. I don't know if you can just peel it off when it cracks, but you at least know what the paint color is. There we have it after one full layer. You can still see some of the color as it started to dry, and some of that texture came through. But after a second layer, you see that texture is pretty much gone. Here's after a third layer. After a third layer, it's so smooth. And what you're going to see me do here now is apply chalk paint furniture wax. I would use this even if it was just latex paint. It just finishes off the fabric, makes it smoother, makes it shiny, makes it look like leather. At certain angles, you can still sort of see the texture of the fabric underneath, but really in normal daylight, you're not going to see it. Finish it with some sort of wax-based top coat. It's not going to rub off on your clothes. It's not going to heat up and do any damage to whoever's sitting in it, but it will protect some of that paint and make it a lot more wipeable, which I like. What I will tell you is they make different colors of furniture wax. So I started out with a clear wax, but I wanted it to look a little bit more aged, so I ended up going over it with a second layer of dark antiquing wax, and that gave me less of an orange and more of a deep sort of I don't want to say calf leather because I'm not a huge leather person, but that like sort of half brown, half orange leather look, It's not quite orange, it's not quite brown, but it looks aged, and I think it looks really beautiful. The other thing I did to this chair was I built a swivel base for it because it was originally on legs. You could see them in the first few shots. Basically, all I did with that is get 2 pieces of plywood, cut them down to the approximate shape of the bottom of the chair, and you can see it swiveling here. And then the other thing that I did that was pretty inexpensive was I went to Lowe's and found like a heavyweight industrial Lazy Susan. And with that Lazy Susan, all I had to do was screw the 2 pieces together and then screw it to the chair, and I ended up with a swivel chair. Here it is styled in my house a couple different ways. You can see it doesn't look exactly like leather, but when you glance at it or when you touch it, it looks and feels like leather. So I hope you enjoyed this sort of quick flip, not rushed, but easy way to upcycle a piece of furniture that you like the shape of, you like the design of it, but maybe the fabric is just not what you want. Remember, depending on the weight of your fabric and the durability of your fabric, you're going to get different finishes. So if you find something with a really heavyweight upholstery on it, something that looks like it will wear beautifully, it is meant to take a beating, and it's smooth, you're going to get the smoothest texture. The farther down you step as far as maybe not quality, but durability of that fabric, you're going to get more texture in it. So in your middleweight textures, you're gonna look more like I don't know how to describe it really, kind of like fiberglass, if that makes sense. It's not ugly, but it's less smooth than leather. And when you go with a really pilly sort of textured weave, like a tweed or a loose weave sort of fabric, you're going to end up with something that's very textured, very stiff. It's going to feel kind of like the back of a sponge that you used to scrub with. It's not a terrible texture. I kind of enjoy it for the way that it looks. To me, it gives sort of a 1980s style whimsy, a very interesting, eclectic look. It's something you'll never find at a store. And if that's your vibe, I would definitely go for it. I might insert a couple of pictures just so you can see some medium weight ones. I'll insert some pictures of the rocking chair I painted in the same color, which was a medium weight fabric, and then I'll insert some pictures of my textured tweed fabric, which is bright yellow, and you'll be able to see kind of the differences of it. But I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it was a little bit informative and maybe gave you some information you didn't have before. You can ask me any questions in the comments. I always look. I'm always here to look. But besides that, I'll be back next time with a different furniture flip. All right, thanks for listening. Bye.